Today I'm going to show you two tests for tight lats that I often use with throwing athletes. Ed Martell, overheadathletics.com. Tight lats are something that I often see in throwing athletes, and it's often something that's overlooked when working with the throwing athletes that I have that come from physical therapy where I haven't had the opportunity to treat them. So I'm going to show you two different tests that I use to try and make sure that you can see whether or not it's a true lat length discrepancy or it's something that's going on in the capsule. So make sure you stay till the last technique so that you can make sure you know exactly how to test the athlete so that you can intervene on the best possible way. So what I'm going to have Max do here is flex your shoulders all the way up to the top. So you can see from this angle it doesn't really look that dysfunctional. Now face the other way. So now here I look at the limit of his range of motion. I can see a little bit of discrepancy, but I don't know if that's inferior capsule, the glenohumeral joint, is it tight lats? So you can look at how his shoulder blade upwardly rotates, and you can see immediately that his lateral border comes off his rib cage more on this side versus the other side. So one other thing what we'll do is we'll have him go up against the wall. So now go up against the wall. Now you want to make sure they put their back flat. So you teach them how to do a posterior pelvic tilt, getting their back all the way flat. Bend down just a little bit, right there in that position. Suck in your belly, pull in your chest. Yeah, pull in your chest. Now go ahead and lift them all the way up now, keeping yourself forward. Yeah. Now you can see immediately that he's got, so his left arm can go all up against the wall and his right arm can't at all. So you definitely are dealing with lat dysfunction, but you got to make sure you know how to test it so you can identify whether it's a true lat length discrepancy. So what you're doing is you're taking up slack in the lat and you're having them go up against the wall. And we'll often do this as a corrective technique, but just as a way to make sure you're testing effectively. Make sure you put them up against the wall, make sure the low back's flat, squat down a little bit, which takes up even more slack in the lat, and see if they can go back with external rotation, which is why the thumb's got to be pointing backwards. And you can tell them to bring their arms together toward the chest. So try that one more time with your arms closer to the top. So now when he brings his hands in even more, you can see it's even more dysfunctional. So the further he goes into, away from his center, you can see it's easier and easier for him to get his thumb back up against the wall. So you want to make sure you're taking up slack in all components of the lat. Posterior pelvic tilt, you want to flex the pelvis, and then have him go back and try and bring his arms to the center while he externally rotates. And you'll immediately see it. So it's a much more effective way of testing it. So just as a way to evaluate your throwing athlete and give you on the right, get you on the right path to where you're not missing something that you should be addressing in your corrective exercise when you're dealing with throwing athletes. Here's test 2. I got him on the table on his back. And oh, by the way, if you think you're going to use test 1, make sure you hit the thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. So on test 2, what I'm going to have him do is I'm going to drop both of his legs to his chest. I like to do it actively. Some people have, people hold the legs. Now take it all the way up. Now what you're going to do is you make sure you teach him a posterior pelvic tilt. So try and draw your abdomen in. And now, once again, flex both shoulders up over top. If you bring him to the center, you can see, and now he's got the table too high. So in this position right there, you can easily see that his left arm goes much further towards the floor than his right. So now bring your arms together. I'll have him pull his shoulder blades down towards his rib cage. Try and pull your shoulder blades down, and that even does it more. So when you actively contract the lat, you can see that he doesn't have as much usable range. Now I've said this over and over with your OAI, you got to create usable range for an athlete so that when they go back to throwing, they use the length that you've created with your passive range of motion techniques. So I want to hear from you guys, if you guys use any of these tests or what kind of test you use to test for tight lats. But as I've shown you, it's very easy to miss tight lats in a throwing athlete, especially if they're an athlete who's hypermobile everywhere and they've got a lot of lumbar extension or they've got a lot of mobility in their shoulder joint. So make sure you subscribe to our channel because we're going to show a bunch of different ways that you can address lat tightness in throwing athletes with stretching passively and as well as co-activation exercises that teach an athlete to contain or control their shoulder blade upward rotation as they actively engage their delt and improve their lat flexibility.